What's up guys, TheMainManSWE here, hoping you're all doing well as usual. I've got quite a special video here today and it's quite ambitious. I've wanted to do something like this for a very long time, and it's some general thoughts on Tekken, you know, the concepts you have to keep in mind while you're progressing through the game. And I've wanted to make this video for a long time. Hopefully you get something out of it. I just would like to say that everything that I say in this video is my opinion, it's my take on Tekken. Don't take it as gospel, you know. Take it with a grain of salt and see what other people have to say about the game. So yeah, this is my opinion only. But a few thoughts I would like to share with you guys, and we'll see if maybe they help someone, or maybe someone starts to see the game in another fashion, you know. We'll see. I'm gonna get right to it, but thanks to Kazia1098 for subbing. Kazia himself subs to my channel. What can I say? Humbled. Thank you very much. So I'm just gonna jump like this and kabam like this. So, oh my god, that awesome thumbnail. A couple of things all Tekken players should know. According to TheMainManSWE. Okay, so I'm gonna get right to it. Bang. So you just lost a match. Does that mean you suck? Well, probably not. There are a couple of things you have to keep in mind here. At the top there, your opponent was better than you. This might have been the case, but you can't just leave it at that, you know. It can be that you lack knowledge of his character. And a game with 35-40 characters, with thousands of moves, yeah, I mean, most people actually have. Even the best players have characters they don't really know all that well. Or it could be that you cannot handle his playstyle. Maybe you're used to playing against really good, for example, Dragunovs, but then you face another Dragunov who just utilizes other moves in his arsenal, you know, in his move list, or just does series and chains of attacks you're just not used to. And or maybe you're not used to someone who's just, oh, he's just backdashing all the time. He's just backdashing and whiff punishing. I'm not used to that. So sometimes when you lose, it's not that someone was better than you, it can be that you can't handle his play style, and that doesn't automatically mean that he's a better player than you. And maybe you were having a bad day, you were having a bad match, and it can also have to do with online adaptability. Let's face it, most people today play Tekken online. Oh, I'm used to playing on 3 bars, and you're used to playing on 5 bars. So when you suddenly find yourself on a 3 bar versus me, I might do better because I'm very used to the timing and the latency. So these are things I think everyone should keep in mind. I keep them in mind, and I try to, with each loss, not see it as, oh, I suck at the game. I try to analyze all of these options, and I go, which one was it? And then I try to learn something from it. Yes. And this is, of course, usually, you know, on my streams I can get annoyed at a specific character, you know, and I start whining, and that's a bad habit we can talk about a bit. But I do want to cover this. Why does everyone play Katarina and Eddie online? Yes, this is because these are lab characters, and lab characters usually revolve around gimmicks. We are going to try and get into this now. What is a lab character? A lab character is a character that plays in a non-linear fashion, unorthodox, stances, string heavy. And this is compared to what we usually deem or see as normal in Tekken. Often very extensive move lists with huge amounts of moves. Moves with incredible crushing properties. Must be punished and countered in a very specific way, and I'm going to get into this very soon. Puts the burden on the opponent. He must know your character or he will fail 100%. And this is the most important aspect of a lab character, and why people like to pick these sorts of characters, because it puts the burden on your opponent to have a huge amount of knowledge. And acquiring knowledge is very hard, you know. Tekken, as mentioned previously, there are just so many moves in the game. So, a lab character example is Ling Xiaoyu, a classic character. We've had her since Tekken 3. And she requires a very specific approach. compared to when you would fight, like, let's say, Paul Phoenix. Forget about the way you usually play Tekken. Play very, very defensively. Patience is key, and this is because she has lots of flips, kicks and stuff where she becomes near invincible. Her crushing properties are so extreme, so you just cannot randomly attack or approach in the fashion you would do on other characters. So when attacking, use mids with a low hitbox, and this is because she will very often hug the floor when rolling or going into the stance you see on the screen, the Art of Phoenix. So you need attacks that always hit very low, but mid as well, because she will jump over lows with her flips and stuff. And let's say you're a Mishima, well, forget about electric pressure. Electric pressure is, or EVGF pressure, is one of the key fundamentals, you know, of the Mishima characters. They pressure with the electric, it's +5 on block. But versus Ling, you just cannot do that, so it becomes a completely different Tekken experience. And if you don't know this stuff, Ling Xiaoyu is going to destroy you. You won't have a single chance. And how many people out of thousands or millions of people who play Tekken, how many do you think have the time to learn the stuff I'm trying to explain here? Is it perhaps 0.01%? Not even that, actually, I would say. It's a very small number. So that's why picking up a lab character is a very thankful experience, because most people won't have a clue as to what you're doing or how to counter it. Gimmicks. What is a gimmick? It's an attack or a stance that is fundamentally very unique, sets itself apart from what is perceived as normal in Tekken. So it's a weird attack, and it can be a weird character property. For example, Kuma's got short legs, and this makes the combo options versus Kuma limited, and some launchers will suddenly not be launchers. For example, Kazuya's forward 3, his left splits kick, it launches every character in the game except for Kuma, because the follow-ups will whiff. And this is due to Kuma's very weird hitboxes. And for example, we can say we have a grounded Kuma. Most characters in grounded have get up 3 or get up 4, you know, those get up kicks, low or mid. Kuma though has a variety of very sneaky and fast mid-low options from grounded, you know, his double-handed strikes. And it's depending if he's lying on his back or stomach, and he can switch between the two at will. So here you really need the matchup knowledge, and you must have seen this before, and the options he has to learn how to counter them. It's not very straightforward. It requires labbing, you know. And the only way to counter gimmicks is to be exposed to them numerous times. And lab character and gimmicks go hand in hand very often. Okay, so why do we see them so much online? And as I mentioned previously, it's because the responsibility will be on you to know the matchup, rather than him knowing your character. Because he will be able to pressure you often very, without a lot of effort. So I'm trying to say this here, that offense is often effortless with the lab characters, compared to the level of skill needed to counter. So that's why if I would have an Eddie Gordo player who has played Tekken for, let's say, 2 weeks, and I have a Kazuya player who has played the game for 5 months, I would bet on the Capo player to win. Most people don't have the time to learn the matchup in practice. And that's completely true, of course. And when I say practice here, it's practice mode. Very few people will actually take the time to lab the characters. And of course, the lab characters, as you have to be so specific in your punishment and so tight in your punishment, you know, you often can't be 1 frame off, you know, when you punish crushing moves and relaxed stance with Capo. They often do very well with lag. and online mode is where it's at today. So another reason why these characters are very popular. And I'm addressing this, by the way, it's not to say that I hate these characters, because I don't hate them. It's just that a lot of people have asked me over the years, what is a gimmick, what's a lab character, what is it that sets Eddie Gordo apart from the other characters? So I just want to try and explain this. And this is a very popular myth, you know, more moves, a bigger move list. That means the character is harder to master. I mean, look at HWOARANG, look at King, look at Xiaoyu. They have so many moves, they must be so hard to master. And this is, I mean, the complete opposite is true, in my opinion. You can argue both ways, but I would argue that less complexity means, so a smaller move list means it's harder to surprise. You have to be creative with the tools you have. More complexity, a bigger move list, means more study for the opponent to learn the matchup. I mean, HWOARANG with his endless amounts of moves, he just has more stuff, you know, to surprise the opponent with. And more moves the opponent has to learn the properties of and how to deal with those moves. So for example, I'm gonna take HWOARANG and GIGAS. GIGAS, or is it GIGAS? It's probably GIGAS. I always get that wrong for some reason. So HWOARANG, no one's going to argue that he is hard to master. He's very technical, a lot of heavy inputs, and he's not super straightforward. He has a huge move list and many stances that make him unpredictable though, and very demanding to research. As I mentioned previously, it's very hard to learn how to deal with HWOARANG due to the amount of options. You know, from the flamingo stance, you know, where he holds up either his left leg or his right leg, he has near unlimited options. So he can be very, you know, tricky. And then we have GIGAS, who's very limited in his move list. You should check it out. He has very, very few moves. It's like 60 moves. And he's very linear to play, or linear. Easy to pick up for this reason. But he's going to plateau very early on. He's difficult in the long run due to his predictability. People will learn the matchup very quickly. Strong mind games and creativity is going to be needed to do well with GIGAS. And of course also due to the fact that his frames are not the best. So I'm going to go into this in more detail now. Efficiency over time. So the Y axle there, you know, the vertical arrow there where it says efficiency, that means how effective the character is in your hands. And to the right, the horizontal arrow, it's over time. As you can see, we've played for days, we've played for weeks, we've played for months, we've played for a year, and then we've played for years. And once again, this is my opinion, and this is not to be seen as official statistics or data, or a 100% representation of my opinion, but rather just to get my idea across, or get a point across. If I put in Brian here, I would say that in the first few days, as you can see, you would have a hard time due to the execution barrier and complication of a character. But then within a few weeks, you do much better due to Snake Edge and Orbital, that mix-up, and his strings, they really help you out, you know, in the ranks you are after a few weeks. But you hit a plateau, because suddenly Snake Edge and Orbital is just not working. People react to it, people jab you out of Orbital, they seem to block your Snake Edge. So you start re-evaluating the character. And after a year, you're doing slightly better, you're understanding pokes and frame traps, but it's still difficult. It's still very difficult after a few years to do very well with Brian. And then I put in Xiaoyu, and as you can see, much more aggressive efficiency after a few weeks. But she also, within a few days, is going to be complicated and overwhelming. She's got lots of stances and stuff, and it can be hard to learn how to utilize that. But in a few weeks, you're suddenly doing very well. She's a lab character, so people, the stuff you're actually throwing at them, most people just have no idea how to get around it. So you get away with so much stuff that should be unsafe if they would know how to punish it. And positive complication. Sure, it was negative complication previously because, oh my god, there's just so much stuff to learn how to utilize. But the same, it's a double-edged sword. That goes to your opponent as well. He has to learn to deal with that. So positive complication really helps you out after a few weeks. And then you plateau slightly and you optimize. And then suddenly, when you are in high ranks, you're facing people who do lab and research. And then it's going to be hard to play Xiaoyu. And then I throw in Kazuya. After a few days, weak strings, no gimmicks. Just not a positive experience at all. After a few weeks, you're still doing really badly, but you understand that you have to develop defense. After a few months, it's getting better, but still a very hard time. You're trying to get proficient movement. After a year, knowledge increasing, but it's still like it's going to take you years to do very well with this character. Claudio, on the other hand, very few moves. Like he has just a couple of moves, and you can actually get around playing with Claudio with just a few moves. The hop kick alone is going to do very well within a few days, because at that level, very few people will punish that properly, and the hop kick alone will do tremendous. Will have tremendous success online. And he has a simplicity of mix-ups, even though his lows are quite bad. And he plateaus due to his predictability, and his simplicity fires back at him, and his weak lows, and he's going to be a very hard character in the highest levels. So, offensive or defensive character. Offensive characters usually do better at tournaments. And this goes for every fighting game. Characters who are very defensive just usually tend to not do well in tournaments. Poking is a very important aspect of a game. And you will notice that most characters who are very high in tier lists usually have very good poking, because launchers is a big part of Tekken, but when you reach the highest level, people don't poking can usually or will usually determine most rounds, rather than being launched, you know, over and over 24/7. Defense in Tekken is uniquely difficult, with thousands of moves and strings and extremely demanding movement execution-wise. And this is why defense-oriented characters usually carry a huge prize, you know, so much content, you know, to learn, so much moves. I've mentioned this before. And of course, movement, super hard. So we have some examples here. Very defense-oriented characters. Kazuya, I probably don't have to explain that one. Asuka, you know, with her parry, her back free, her forward 2 with punish. She has a couple of pokes, but she really, where she really shines is in her defense and her keep out tools. So a defensive character. These two characters usually don't do very well in tournaments. And here we have all-around characters, Devil Jin and Dragunov. These guys are really, really good. And these are characters that I'm not going to go into them much now, but Dragunov, of course, is a more offense-oriented all-round character, and Devil Jin is a more defense-oriented all-round character. But these two do very well. And to the right, we have very offensive characters. We have HWOARANG, Heihachi, and Katarina. And these characters do very well in tournaments. I'm not gonna say that we've seen Katarina, you know, at a grand finals at a tournament, but I've seen, for example, Europeans and some Americans do quite well with them in tournaments. With her, I meant. So when picking your character, you know, maybe you should keep this in mind, you know, that if you go with an offensive character, you can control the match to a degree which you cannot do perhaps if you're playing Asuka or Kazuya or maybe another defensive-oriented character. Jack 7 is a rather defensive-oriented character. You know, he has long arms, he likes to stay a couple of steps away from the opponent and do down for 2, you know, huge range, or forward 2, counter it, forward 1+2. He does pretty well at that distance. But the thing is, he's got really good poking, you know. So almost the best of 2 worlds, but I mean his sidestep sucks, so yeah, he has defensive issues. Big hitbox as well. This is a question I get all the time. Why am I stuck in light blue ranks or green ranks? So you have to understand that early ranks, so quotation marks here, and high ranks are 2 completely different worlds, and 2 very different approaches to the game are presented in each of those worlds. So, green ranks usually deliver solid understanding of offense. We're going to give them that. They have a solid understanding of offense. Tried and tested flowcharts, very prevalent in these ranks. Extremely offensive. Very lacking movement and defense overall. But I would say that this does not go for the Mishima players we see in green ranks, who very often have a really good grasp of movement and defense. Lack of knowledge, fear of blocking, and standing still. And here I have a quote. Things usually fall apart when I'm blocking. So they do have a fear of blocking, and this is because they have a very limited knowledge of the characters in the game. Low knowledge, and when you have low knowledge, you don't want to be on the defensive side of things. You have everything to lose when you block and everything to win when you attack, and that's why they are relentless in their offense. You know, even when you are, you know, doing attacks, frame advantage attacks on them, on hit or on block, they will usually, you will counter hit them because they just want to attack and attack and attack. They would rather do a crushing move than block. So these are things you have to understand if you want to deal with green ranks. Orange ranks usually deliver great understanding of offense. Some flowcharts, but a great degree of adaptation and adaptability. Knows when to attack and when to simply wait. Movement-based playstyle suddenly. Good amount of character knowledge. And now something we must understand. A green rank can beat an orange rank. There are plenty of people who have an easier time fighting orange ranks compared to green ranks. And you will often see green rank Mishima players actually holding their own against orange rank Mishima players or Bryans or Pauls. But as soon as they face a green rank Lily, they have no chance whatsoever. And this is due to a lack of character knowledge. Green ranks will test your knowledge and patience under stress. A green rank can take high ranks by surprise and win, but will always lose in sets. So this was always, you know, a great problem with Tag 2, where you played ranked and you would always only fight an opponent once. And a green rank, you know, style Lily, Xiaoyu, Claudio, whatever, they can always surprise you with a unique playstyle and some strong flowcharts. They will always fail in sets though against a strong player, because the strong player will eventually read them and see the flaws in their game. And the most important aspect of playing Tekken is the importance of awareness. You have to keep this in mind in every single fight you have. Every single fight in Tekken, you have to, these questions here have to go through your head as you are playing. Before the fight starts, after a round, and after the match. What am I doing? What are you doing right now in the fight? What are you trying to accomplish? What is my opponent doing? Are you trying to read him? Are you focusing on the next few moves you're going to do, or are you trying to look at what he is doing and adapt to that? Am I reacting to what he is doing, or am I repeating old habits? Are you in your flowchart robotic mode, you know, where you go, I usually do this and this and this and this, and that usually works, so I'm just gonna run up to him and do that? Or are you reacting to what he is presenting you? How many of my moves do I do without thinking, and how many are calculated? This happens to everyone, you know, where in a specific situation you throw out a move without thinking. You know, it's subconscious. It's a bad habit you've forced, you've trained it to the point where it's thrown out without thinking. And some people, you know, perhaps in green ranks, it's 80% automatic what they're doing, and 80% pre-planned rather than adapting to a situation. And you want to eliminate that to the biggest amount possible, you know. If you're at 80%, get that down to 50%. I mean, your ambition is to get it down to 0%, if that is possible, but you want to be aware when you play Tekken. Don't do old habits and pre-planned series of strings and moves, you know, that you just do no matter what your opponent is doing. Oh, I do this, and when I do this, it's the dumbest thing you can do. Do you rely too much on flowcharts? Eliminate that. Adapt and stop being predictable. Predictability is also a very important thing when it comes to fighting games. Quote, damn, my opponent always guesses right on my 50-50. And this is something I always had with my brother Valle when we would play. He would face my Kazuya many years ago. He would always block my hell sweep properly and my twin pistons. The classic Kazuya 50-50 or forward 3. He would always he would always block the low and the mid properly. And I would just be pulling my hair out and go like, how is this possible? Does he have inhuman reflexes? Is he reading my mind? But the thing was that I had a specific timing to when I dashed up to him and did the low, and when I dashed up and did the forward 3. So even though that mix-up is unseeable, he always knew my timing. So he always knew, oh, after this amount of time it's a mid. After this amount of time on the forward dash it's a low. And I would never understand that. So if you're in a if you are in that situation, I just hope you learn now the importance of mixing your timing, because I would have loved to have someone pointing that out to me. So vary the timing of your attacks. Some people have the habit of trading blows and always advancing in the same fashion. One forward dash and attack. Maybe try to do 2 dashes into attack. Mix it up. Oh, he blocked low. I'm gonna do a mid now. The no mix-up is also a mix-up. Don't go into this, you know, very simplistic mix-up of, oh, he blocked my low, so I'm gonna do a mid. You know, try to vary it, you know. Oh, low, low, low. Oh, mid, low. Mid, mid, low. You know, use throws. You know, your opponent cannot know what you will be doing next. So be as unpredictable as possible. And unpredictability is the key to beating higher ranks. What is a flowchart? A flowchart is basically a series of pre-planned offensive maneuvers. For example, a low does 4 up 3, so that's right kick into somersault, and he does that immediately into a down forward 1-3-2, and finally into down 2-3, which is that counter hit launcher that we see Laws do quite a lot in green ranks. So he always does that, does this sequence. And the Law player likes this sequence because on previous opponents, it has in 90% of cases ended in his favor. Usually at least people would be counter hit by down forward 1-3-2, but sometimes they would block that and instead eat down to 3 on counter hit. His opponents didn't want to guard that long. What happens versus a good player? And this is a typical green rank law flowchart. And what better players do, and players with patience and people who have awareness, as I talked about previously, is that when we see this the first time, we might eat it, but the second time you recognize it for what it is. Okay, so this is his flowchart. And you might, on the down forward 1-3, you might actually low parry that, or down to 3, oh, you know it's coming. A full 3 seconds before the move is actually presented, you know it's coming due to knowing his flowchart. And suddenly the fact that down to 3 is -17 is not a tight punish anymore because you knew it was coming. And eliminate your own flowcharts as much as possible to really succeed in ranked battle and in Tekken. And keep in mind that Tekken is a very, very difficult game. Advanced execution-based movement. Can you name me a single other game or a fighting game where the movement is as difficult as the movement in Tekken? I seriously doubt you could think of any game. Endless amounts of moves and properties to learn. Literally thousands of attacks and strings that have thousands upon thousands of properties. Well, very thousands of moves that all have properties like, you know, hitbox, frames, is it a mid, low, high, you know, is it parryable, you know, it's just so much to learn in this game. Incredibly unforgiving, you know, fast launchers with huge combo damage, you know, you get, it hurts to play this game if you don't know what you're doing. High-paced and complicated mind games. So when we take this into account, can we in the end stay mad or be upset at people who pick the easier characters to limit the amount of years they have to put down before they can win? No, we can't stay mad at those people. And I don't stay mad at them. I have my heat in the heat of the moment, you know, outburst or I go fuck, you know, when I play, when you see me on my stream. But I would never I would never blame someone who picks Katarina, because I know what hell it is, you know, to pick up Brian or a character like that, or maybe even Paul. You know, well, okay, Paul is kind of brain dead in Tekken 7, but Nina, of course, is a very difficult character to play, and Ling can be difficult. So you just can't be mad at those guys, you know, and capos, you know, because what's the alternative to picking a capo? I mean, and everyone cannot go, you know, 6 months, you know, losing every fight and then suddenly starting to win. Some people need to win early on, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, that is actually what I wanted to cover in this video. I sure hope it was enlightening for you. I mean, this was only my opinion, you know, but some of the stuff I covered here is stuff that helped me a lot when I tried to learn Tekken and get better at the game. So if some of it has that effect on you, then that would be awesome. But if it doesn't, then at least I presented my opinions on this. And once again, remember that it's my opinion. See what other people have to say about Tekken, you know, and they might be more right than I am. But I at least hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later. Take care.